you put it back? What fits? What makes it work? Bilal. Bilal. What is that? Abstract. What does that mean? It contains all of the answers to all of the problems that were born from the history that we've talked about from the time of al-Islam coming to Mecca, going across Africa, Atlantic slave trade, Islamic empires in Africa, slave plantation, built Negroes freed, built loss of identity, blah, blah. What's the answer? Bilal. Like it, don't like it, hate it, don't understand it, push back. It doesn't matter in a manner of speaking. It's like, what's your proof that it ain't that? Well, what is it? If it ain't that, what is it? Let me move. I'm gonna stop arguing with them people. Uh so without getting into the actual tactics involved with the establishment of that, I'm moving on past that to now moving from, it's like we've been on a horizontal plane, now we're about to go up. Okay, we moved horizontally. Mecca, Africa, Atlantic slave trade, American South, emancipation, Black freedom movements. Now we're early 21st century. The same people that have had and been going through this journey, what do they mean now? The same people that have been going through that journey, what do they mean now? What is their significance now? And please understand this, even as we talk about 1975 being 50 years from now, half a century ago, in the clock of God, in the timepiece of God, that was 2 seconds ago. It was 2 seconds ago. It just happened. Just happened. And you need to go back and look at how many things happened in 1975. A lot of stuff went down. Just the first part of the 70s, a lot of stuff went down. What was just said about Huey. But let's move on. Oh, and also, Huey's niece, I took Huey's niece to the junior prom. Yeah, to junior prom. It's another story. And his nephew used to compete with me dancing. But I really didn't have no competition dancing. But then that's another story. Alhamdulillah. So yeah, I'm familiar with that part of this family very much. We went to school together, Skyline High School. All right. So where we at here, Fahim? All right. So everything we said so far, that's history. That's the horizontal, the earthly history. We're about to go up now. Now we covered that. So now the aspiration is to see more of all that work, all that work. Well, literally, there is in the title, the history's fashioning of the Bilalian as a fit vessel for inspiration. Right? All of that history, all of that horizontal history is history's fashioning the Bilalian as a fit vessel for inspiration. And this is, quote unquote, the issue of the courage is to accept that, really, you think God did that for those people? Just think about it. When you said did that for those people, you're thinking about for those people, thinking about it from the perspective of, well, they don't deserve it. Who are you talking about? Who how did they get into the condition that they're in right now? Can you separate the condition that they're in right now from the history that they've been through? And can you separate the history that they've been through from the presence of God during all that time? And can you say that this God that's present during all that time was just letting it happen and for no reason? That's what you would have to believe to say that it didn't mean nothing. I don't believe it. In fact, we got evidence against it, but we're going to move on. So history's fashioning of the Bilalian as a fit vessel for inspiration is what we're speaking to. All right. So I didn't have well, I didn't take the time to put a lot of cute bells and whistles and what have you, and I'd love to make the aesthetic better. In fact, that people talk about death by PowerPoint because there's nothing but letters, but mashallah, so forgive me. But I just put it up there so you can have the information, and even while I'm talking, you can be reading it. But the point is that I don't have a whole lot of cute stuff on it. And I mean that in a laughing at myself kind of way. Okay. But moving on. So I got this from the progressive chief Imam Salim Mu'min, who is the founder and leader of Mali, which is also one of the blessed institutions, one of the blessed institutions from out of this quote unquote Renaissance that we're speaking to, that we're beginning to speak about. And he and I, mashallah, we have regular conversations off, and I count it as a blessing and an honor to have an exchange with someone who has the depth of knowledge, and particularly of the technical aspects of the Quran, Quranic Arabic, and Quranic scholarship that is from a tafsir perspective. So we talk about many things. One of the things we talked about recently was Bilal and the Renaissance. And so, I abstracted this from our conversation, and I want to share this with you. He said, the idea of Renaissance, I looked up, this is him speaking. The idea of Renaissance, I looked up Renaissance in English first to get the idea for the Arabic for the concept. The name Bilal is the concept of Renaissance. It means moisture, the moisture of the dew, the early morning dew on the foliage. This is the concept of Bilal. So Bilal means bringing richness and newness to a culture. This is the Renaissance for the African American. Even though we haven't come into a Renaissance yet, we're at the initiation of a Renaissance that we haven't come into yet. The Imam, speaking of Imam Muhammad, the Imam gave us the seed to initiate a Renaissance in the African American, to become a new people, a new culture. As a slave, everything was removed from us except for that original nature. That's the association with the blackness of Bilal, that original nature. Blackness is a symbol of that nature. Let me interject here, because there's inside of that conversation was the acknowledgement that, okay, so survival prior to, I'm sorry, survival pending revolution. Yes. Survival pending revolution, right? So in this survival pending, I get that. And when I use revolution, this is also in the context of what we're saying. The revolution is whatever changes social relations. If the nature of social relations don't change, there has been no revolution, right? But if you bring, like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Prophet Muhammad revolutionized Mecca, Arabia, and of course the world for that matter. He revolutionized. So wherever al-Islam goes, al-Islam is revolutionary. Just period. I'm not telling Tyson something he don't already know. I'm saying that for everybody else. It's like al-Islam is revolutionary, because if everybody comes into the relationships that al-Islam invites everybody into, the fathers, the mothers, the husbands, the wives, the daughters and sons to their parents, and people to leadership and blah, blah. If all those become what al-Islam said, that's a revolution. And whenever you see those people who receive al-Islam, practice al-Islam, you have witnessed a revolution, right? So al-Islam is revolutionary by nature, okay? So in the context of the survival pending revolution, taking that revolution in the fullness of al-Islam and ummah, right? Then that means, okay, so black. So those who understand the esoteric language, since y'all here, y'all listen to me and you're hearing what I'm saying, I'm telling you, I'm giving you black right now in this moment as esoteric revolutionary, esoteric Islamic revolutionary language. Black as esoteric Islamic revolutionary language. So that is to say, when someone who understands the esoteric meaning of it, meaning where a small circle of people, and it's small only because others are not using it, right? A small circle of people who understand, oh, okay, well, when he says black, if he uses black, he's inside of and behind whatever he's saying, he's also saying this, people of the original nature. People of the black people. What do you mean black people? People of the original nature. What are you speaking? Is it there? Is the original nature there? Yeah, the original nature there. Okay, so they're black people. Based on that understanding of not being caught up in the cultural consensus trance, the shared hallucination, the social consolidation, all of which we've talked about and explained. So when I use black, when I do, inside of my consciousness, inside of my awareness, is the awareness that what I'm speaking to is that original nature that was never lost, that original nature that has been the driving force in this particular people that are called black. So in terms of the legitimacy of that application for a Muslim who understands fully and otherwise, their use of it is a qualified use of it with that esoteric understanding behind it. So let's keep pushing. So going back, blackness is a symbol of that nature. With Bilal, the person with slavery and coming out of that to a new person, a new people, a renaissance, which ties in with the logic of remaking the world. But we are a ways from it, right? We are a ways from this new culture, this new renaissance. This is the beginning of it. That's Bilal, the morning dew. You understand? That's me talking. A new culture that becomes a model for humanity, not in scientific innovations, which may occur, but in terms of the concept of the universal person in terms of humanity. That's the concept. That's the Renaissance, but it hasn't occurred yet. That's the idea of Bilal. You all should take a screenshot of that and study it. But it's just crystal clear. Bilal, even right now, just to speak in terms of space-time consideration, it's absolutely positively the proper time to understand and initiate. Remember, 1975 was just 2 seconds ago on the clock of God. So don't use it. Man, I was 50 years ago. Come on, get on God's clock. When you get on God's clock, you say, "Oh yeah, it's happening right now." So that's good. So it's absolutely another reaffirmation of how, yeah, Bilal is right for the time, for who we are, for what it is, what we've come from, what needs to be repaired, what was being pointed to, was being called to. I mean, man, let's go. And I get caught up in it sometimes. Let me say this also about this idea of progressive chief. This is I started to put progressive chief of the Bisa people. I'm gonna have to check with him to make sure that that's good. But this is he goes to Ghana when he in Ghana and here and he goes to Ghana, he's progressive chief, that real chief, and not the real chief gave him the chief title, right? The top chief. I don't want y'all to think, well, that's that's what do you call it? The ceremonial title. No, it's the real deal. Okay. You understand that? Yeah. I mean, he's a friend. Alhamdulillah, but see, what we have to do, we have to respect our own stuff. We have to respect our own people. That's what we talk about the network effect, right? It's like the network effect. How many people? Okay, only 2 people say it. Okay, well, the network effect is 4. Okay, now if 4 people say, okay, the network effect is 16. If we want to strengthen our stuff, then we have to subscribe to those things that give us our strength and not our weakness. Let's move on, Fahim. All right, so we're going up now. Again, we talked about the horizontal, we talked about the material plane, we talked about the historical plane. Now, everything we're going to be talking about from now up toward the end is getting more to now when you talk about abstract. Imam Asma, I don't know if he's online right now, but he brought another important thing to our attention last week. Either it was last week or it might have been with the clear understanding. But it was the idea of the Imam defining sublimation. Sublimation. And I've already had in terms of education. Education is the ATION means the outcome of a certain process. So that's what ATION means. Education is the outcome of the process of drawing out, right? So many gentrification, the outcome of the process of people coming back in, right? So sublimation is the process of making something sublime, right? From the Imam. The process of making something sublime. So, and what's that? That's going up. That's going up. So even though when you hear the word sublimation, you think first in the common ordinary usage of it, it's going down. Somebody sublimated this, they pushed it down, they pushed it back, it became more unconscious. No, that's not the only thing that it means. It's everything created in pairs, right? Sublimation means also something becoming sublime. All right. And so this effectively is what we're going to be talking about from this time. That you thought you were challenged by Bilal. We're going to follow the logic to its conclusion. You follow those footsteps and say, okay, well, what's behind that wall? What's behind that veil? It's like, okay, well, do you have the courage to go in there? Okay, well, follow the logic to its conclusion. Have the courage to do that. That's where we're going right now. So if you think just the word Bilal was a challenge, hold on to your hats. Alhamdulillah. And for some, yeah, I know I'm digging a little bit hard on it. But for others, yeah, I always it's like Neo in the Matrix, right? I always felt that, but I couldn't ever explain it, right? Okay, well, let's go to some of the explanation here. Now, I want to start out showing this, so I'm gonna have to do a different save for it, and you may hear the sound repeated a couple of times. But this is a YouTube short piece that kind of sets the tone, um, uh, or a frame or a cornerstone for understanding the connection between trauma and achievement. Excuse me. I think we've all agreed that this people has gone through a traumatic experience, right? But I want to say to us to understand, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرٌ. إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرٌ. Verily, with the trauma is the blessing. What kind of translation is that? That's the way you can translate that. If you're going to say translation, that's an expression. Along with all these things that were happening, there was another positive thing that was happening at the same time. Did everybody get the full benefit of the plus side of it? No. But it was the qadr of Allah, and whatever Allah allows, it is always bringing about the best for the most. And it may be that you dislike a thing through which Allah brings about a great deal of good. All of that's Quran, right? And when we talk about Quran, the will of God, the laws of nature, etc., that's what's operative in all of that. But listen to this, and then we're going to carry on with what we're talking about here. So I'm gonna stop this share, and I'm gonna bring up another piece. I think, oh yeah, here it is right here. And remind me if I don't go back to my original slides, somebody catch me and say, Fahim, you got to remember, go back to the other slides. But check this out. This is a guy, this is a former CIA guy, you know, kind of like Black Ops, Green Beret, whoever, that kind of dude. Here you go.
Lessons that you get at CIA, one of the first lessons they tell you is that there's a strong connection, an empirical connection between childhood trauma and high achievement. The science is out there. I looked it up on my own. The connection is extraordinary. People who experience the right amount of childhood trauma, enough that you had to prove something, but not so much that you had to adopt external coping mechanisms. Like drugs. Correct. Drugs, addictions to pornography, substance abuse, submitting yourself to the authority of others, right? There's a certain amount of trauma, that's the right amount of trauma, that turns you into this high achiever. You always have to win something because you're trying to win favor, win attention, win rewards, win glory, win something. But it's not because you were born with drive. It's because some part of your childhood, those formative years, taught you that by achieving, you will be rewarded. The first lessons that you get at CIA, one of the first lessons they tell you is that there's a strong connection, an empirical connection between childhood trauma and high achievement. The science is out there. I looked it up on my own. The connection is extraordinary. People who experience the right amount of childhood trauma, enough that you had to prove something, but not so much that you had to adopt external coping mechanisms. Like drugs. Correct. Drugs, addictions to pornography, substance abuse, submitting yourself to the authority of others, right? There's a certain amount of trauma, that's the right amount of trauma, that turns you into this high achiever. You always have to win something because you're trying to win favor, win attention, win rewards, win glory, win something. But it's not because you were born with drive. It's because some part of your childhood, those formative years, taught you that by achieving, you will be rewarded. The first lessons that you get at CIA, one of the first lessons they tell you is that there's a strong connection, an empirical connection between childhood trauma and high achievement. The science is out there. I looked it up on my own. The connection is extraordinary. People who experience the right amount of childhood trauma, enough that you had to prove something, but not so much that you had to adopt external coping mechanisms. Like drugs. Correct. Drugs, addictions to pornography, substance abuse, submitting yourself to the authority of others, right? There's a certain amount of trauma, that's the right amount of trauma, that turns you into this high achiever. You always have to win something because you're trying to win favor, win attention, win rewards, win glory, win something. But it's not because you were born with drive. It's because some part of your childhood, those formative years, taught you that by achieving, you will be rewarded. The first lessons that you get at CIA, one of the first lessons they tell you is that there's a strong connection, an empirical connection between childhood trauma and high achievement. The science is out there. I looked it up on my own. The connection is extraordinary. People who experience the right amount of childhood trauma, enough that you had to prove something.
One of the days I'm gonna get that switch in control here. But and my object was to play it 3 times in accordance with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If something's important, he would repeat it 3 times. Okay, so here we are. We're back. All right. So real quick, you do understand that we spent our childhood in America on the slave plantation. You understand that, right? We spent our childhood as a people on the slave plantation in the South in America, right? So there is for us as a people childhood trauma, right? Not to even speak of going beyond that, but just think about it. Just think about it. You grew up in captivity. Literally, we grew up in captivity. Different numbers, 379 years and the like. Come on now. It's like, even on the clock of God, it's a short period of time, but on the clock of humanity, 379 years in those kind of conditions. And then that's without talking about the post-emancipation trauma that goes with that. So let's move on. So the point is to understand that we as a people have experienced that kind of trauma, which under certain circumstances lead to high achievement. That's what we're going to talk about. This, my dear brothers and sisters, is why from among those people, you get extraordinary, unbelievable, most deaf, I'm sorry, his other name escapes me. Whatever. I met him as most Def, so that's it. So he plays a character in something the Lord has made, real history, real story, real uh, whatever, actual events and the like. The point is, he was doing things that all these other folks, Caucasians, could not do it miraculously, couldn't be understood. Then you go back, you look at quote unquote hidden figures. You look at that, you get the same kind of phenomena, and so many others. That's our history is. How can you say populated? I started to say littered, but I don't want it to be taken as litter. That was definitely not trash, but our history is populated with what, who, he did what, she did what, and they had no training what, they never did up. It's like, that's who we are. That's how we do. That's what we do. I don't remember who it was, but it was recent news, right? Recent news. Y'all, please be patient with me because I'm not going to finish this today. So we're going to have to go ahead and just cover as much as we can. Yeah, alhamdulillah. Thank you, brother Dennis. Yassine Bey. Yeah, brother Yassine Bey. Uh, so whatever, y'all know who it is. Somebody also put it in the chat. His brother did a football run this week. His brother did a football run, and he was running and dodging from the tacklers the way he tackled. This dude jumps over the tackler, jumps over him backwards with his leg. You know, you got the famous Jim Brown. The first time you really saw somebody do that, Jim Brown jumped over somebody. And so now it's just a standard thing. But this brother, he jumped up over the tackler backwards with his legs. It's like, who does that? Who even thinks about that? You know, who ever think, okay, well, they got me. So the other folks say, well, shoot, got past all the other dude, but I know I ain't gonna get past this cat because he right on me. Nah. Yeah, Saquon Barkley. Okay. It's like, who does that? Nobody does that, right? And so you can go to all the different sports and the like. It says we will do something genius. We will change the game. We will change the strategy. The only one thing I can think about right now from the European, the Fosbury flop. I remember when that first came out, the Fosbury flop, the Olympic high jumper. This dude right now, I'm not even saying that he might have got it from a Watusi in Africa. Somebody who don't know about it, right? It's got the Fosbury flop. You go up and then you go over the bar backwards. It's like, otherwise it was that old, European style. It's like, so that's the only thing that I would say. Okay, we're Caucasian, it's named after Caucasian, but that ain't always the way things go. We understand that. But if there's a different history to the Fosbury flop, that's one thing. But in terms of everything else, man, dribbling behind the back, the no look passing kind of things, like, man, we are those people. Let's move on. So, all right. So what I'm saying is that trauma leads to a level of creativity and innovation and inclination to creativity and innovation that others who have not had that same traumatic combination, they don't manifest these capabilities in the creativity and innovation. See, this is, I want you to understand, this is the seed, this is the kernel, this is the foundation, this is the source of the creativity and the innovation, right? We don't even need to talk about music. We don't need to talk about dancing. It's like, who does that? It's like, who does that? Nobody does that. But and of course, a lot of that has to do, okay, well, the only thing I have access to, only thing I have freedom for is at least my own body. So we do things with our body that others just haven't imagined to do. So much I can't get away from it as easy as it. I know you might like me to, and I might like to, but that needs to be said. Okay, I think I can read something now. Okay. Understand, this is what we're speaking about right now is ontology, right? What we speak of ontology, look it up. Short version, ontology is, what is the map of reality? Just put it like that. Ontology is, what is the map of reality? That is what reality? Reality seen and unseen, the laws of nature, the laws of creation, the nature, the dynamic relationship between the human being and creation, macrocosm, microcosm, all those. This part of our conversation is about that, a description of that, and how we as human beings relate to that. And then in turn, now the hope is to understand how trauma and achievement relates to us and the nature of creation. Okay. So our statement is this: there's a pattern of knowledge, a science of reality in all domains that are third-party independent, meaning that they already exist. They're debates. You can find them online, find them anywhere in the digital space. It's like, is mathematics discovered or is it created? That's a debate, right? Is mathematics discovered? Did Isaac Newton invent calculus or did he discover calculus? So calculus was already existing, but there was not a mind that could reach into the nature of creation or beyond the material creation and abstract mathematics, calculus, and make it work here in three-dimensional space and time, right? So the debate is, does calculus exist before the mind reaches in and gets it, or does the mind manufacture mathematics? So let's move on. So the point is that we're saying that those things that get discovered, they are already existing. They are already existing. What doesn't exist is the mind that can grasp it. All right. So, second sentence here. They exist independently of our minds. They already exist independently of our minds. As we grow in knowledge, information, complex cognitive capabilities, all of this growth, right? As we grow in knowledge, as we grow in information, as we grow in complex cognitive capability, we become more and more capable of removing the veil that acts as a barrier between our minds and that pattern, information, and knowledge in reality, right? There's an author is like, if you dabble in this kind of conceptual philosophy and other things like that, then I'm point you in the direction. If you have no knowledge base for it, don't even go over there. So I've told you that. There is knowledge there, but you got to bring knowledge in order to get knowledge from where I'm speaking to right now. His name is Bernardo Kastrup. Bernardo Kastrup, Kastrup. And the terminology is obfuscation. Obfuscation. And you got those people, those people out there. I won't mention their names. They're not top of mind right now. I see their faces, but I don't have a name. But the point is that they try to tell you that uh, what you're seeing is not reality. What they're saying that the world is deceiving you. They're saying this as scientists, and they're making these statements kind of like clickbaity kind of statements. What you see is not reality. You're living in the matrix, or whatever it is. That they use language like that to say what the Quran says in one word. The Quran says it, but they're doing something else because they're not Muslims and believers in that sense, but they are material scientists that come to a level of understanding that enables them to say that reality is an illusion. They'll say reality is an illusion, right? And the world not having a background for it, they do start thinking like we're all in a movie and there's somebody else we're in a computer, whatever. What do you call it? A computer simulation, like life is a computer simulation. Well, forget that. But what does Quran say? Quran says this world is ghurur. This world is ghurur. Okay. This world is ghurur. So it's a translation or expression of it is an illusion. Yeah, that's true. But how does that quote unquote illusion fit in the total reality that the creator of it, who his intention is not to deceive us, God's intention, and there's a whole better knowledge that says that the creator is a deceiver, but that's something else. God's intention is not to deceive us. A part of it, again, what's veiled against us, if you will, in reality, the veil is there for our protection, right? And once you get past the clickbait and the rest of it, you can understand it when you start thinking, when you study and get better understanding of, well, why is it so? Why is it that the reality is not full and evident to us when you open up your eyes and you look out in the nature of creation? Everything you see seems to have this solidity to it. It has this solidity to it, and it is. But we know that when a scientist looks into whatever it is that we're talking about, then we know that when you get down to the atomic and the subatomic, the quantum level of things, then materiality disappears. Materiality disappears. Of these same things that we experience as solid, they disappear. Okay, so that's fine. But if you didn't have the barrier between you and that reality, it's like, yeah, it'll be, how can you say, make you crazy. Let's just put it like that. So Allah puts it in such a situation where it's not. My granddaughter's opening up here. I hope it's not too much of a distraction. Um, so the idea is that the illusion that we experience life as, a part of it is for, and mainly is for our protection. So the obfuscation is the veil between us and what is, or the unseen that's behind it. And so Muslims, one of the first things that we should also understand is God has already talked to us this way. God has already said, yu'minuna bil ghaib. They believe in the ghaib. They believe in the unseen. So we've already been told, look, there's reality that you don't see. Even though you don't see it, it is a reality. It is a part of the nature of creation. But you have to get to a place where you can get, let's call it, beyond the veil, right? So stay with this. And any questions that you might have around this? Yes, alhamdulillah, Imam Fareed, you're right. Abraham discovered this. Yes, it is the star, the moon, the sun, that movement that's mentioned in Surah 6. That movement is like from 675 through 79. That really, it is an abstract statement of that particular thing. Uh, okay, so let's go back to the map. So as we grow in knowledge of these things, we become more and more capable of getting beyond the veil. See, that is Abraham. So you get beyond the veil. But the veil was serving us, and as our knowledge grows, then we can transcend and get beyond the limitations that they represent. A useful limitation, but it's not to be you're not to be bound by it in such a way where you don't discover higher and further and more transcendent truth. So we call that discovery. When you get to that point, you say, oh, this is what is behind the veil. I'm just using that word. I'm not using it in any other kind of esoteric theosophy or whoever. I'm just throwing these words out there so you understand. That's not what I'm talking about. The reality of discovery. It already exists, but our minds don't. We're not born at the level where we're able to grasp what is, quote unquote, behind the barrier that is the nature of reality as we experience it in three-dimensional space-time. All right, let's carry on. In some cases, now we're getting to the trauma issue, okay? In some cases, trauma will tear the veil and give access to a particular pattern of knowledge. So remember, go back to my first sentence up here. It says, there's a pattern of knowledge, a science of reality in all domains that are third-party independent. What domains? Art, music, math, physics, and so many others that I'm not mentioning. There's a whole domain of knowledge related to that given domain or sphere that exists, whether the mind is there to pull it out, understand it, see it, or not, right? And as a general rule, you have to develop and grow star, moon, sun to get to the capacity where you can naturally abstract those things. You get the Leonardo da Vinci types, and all and whatever else. Those the Isaac Newtons and El Khwarizmi and okay, we put all our folks in there too. Okay, all of them are our folks because they're human and all they are human beings who have realized certain aspects of their capacity. And Allah blesses everybody in every age to have someone who has this transcendent ability. So it's all in the human nature and its connection with the nature of creation. The ones who get their best and the ones who get the most are those who do so in obedience to and in service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is God. That's in the Islamic language, we say Allah, but there are other non-Muslims, as we would call them, who also are serving God and who God blessed and blesses with knowledge from behind the veil also. All right. In some cases, trauma will tear the veil and give access to a particular pattern of knowledge that is otherwise beyond or otherwise behind the veil. Those are the ones that we call savants, right? That's part of the language for those people. You see those who perhaps, Jason Paget. This is always an easy one to get to. Jason Paget. I won't go into it. You look it up, you'll see what I'm saying. He had a brain trauma experience, and when he quote unquote came out of the coma that he was put into, he had this phenomenal ability to translate uh, physics concepts into art, literally, actually, mathematically correct, hand drawn. This is before AI, hand drawn images that fit and express high physics and high mathematical concepts. They're able to do it. Another had experienced traumatic experience, then he come out with the capacity to speak a foreign language. Never grew up in that country, never lived there, but could speak that language. And there's again so many others, right? These are cases where trauma tore the veil between let's call it the seen and the unseen. And as a result of that, there was an inflow, if you will, from that information, from that domain into that person's consciousness, and they were able to display, speak, and express things that are grasped from quote unquote behind the veil. I'm sorry, I just have to use that language right now. And so that's what happens in trauma. Not always with everyone. Some people just pure trauma, and they're just disabled for the rest of their life, etc. And there are some who are born with certain brain anomalies where they have this capacity to do certain things, but then some of the regular, normal, everyday things they can't do at all. But because of the abnormality of their neurology, then there's a crease, a crack, what have you, of this outflow and access to knowledge that is beyond this barrier that I'm trying to point to. This happened. This is what trauma can do. And like the piece that we played, just the right amount of trauma can bring this phenomenal achievement result. So it's like we're all Bilalians who experience the experimental clinic designed to cause us to dysfunction in the vital areas of our lives, while millions of us experienced that. Millions of us did not and do not and have not become, high achievers. But when you look at the how can you say what do you call it when you look at the stars in the sky, right? When you look at the stars in the heavens of our history, you do have, and we do have people who are high achievers and phenomenal individuals of discovery, of creativity, of innovation, of quote unquote I don't like the word, I'll use it, of superhuman performance in those areas, but in actuality, it's really just human performance. But because most human beings don't perform at the highest levels, the others are considered to be superhuman. But the point is that it is not unusual for there to be high achievers from among us for the very reason of our history of trauma. That's a part of the treasure from the trauma. Okay, that's an important thing to understand. That's a reality. So it goes on. Then that hidden reality, upon this fissure, FISSURE, this break, this breach, this moving out from here to there and vice versa, then that hidden reality comes into the consciousness of that mind, or that consciousness enters into that reality in a particular way that would otherwise require years of focus, right? Use the monk metaphor. How many years in a Shaolin monastery with this kind of discipline and that kind of discipline, then you get these extraordinary, okay, how long did it take? It took 40 years, all right? But there are cases where trauma shortens that process, right? In particular ways, in particular arenas that would otherwise require years of focused study and development to reach that level of human development required to gain access to that level in the veiled realm of knowledge. I hope and pray that you understand what we've said and pointed to. Okay, so what a metaphor is coming to mind right now is like sperm in the birth canal. The sperm in the birth canal. How many sperm were emitted into the birth canal? Billions, I'm told. But how many survived the trek? One. And then if they're twins, two. Right? But where the others did not achieve that goal. All right. So when we talk about the millions of those who have suffered and inherited, in some cases, the trauma of the experimental clinic, then we find to speak of the birth of the fertilized zygote that came in consequence and that overcame the opposition to be realized. Then we see that genius, that creativity, that innovative capacity, that high achievement level. We see it, yes, in a smaller percentage of those people as a whole, but they are phenomenal high achievers. And we are saying that the trauma itself is what contributed to the high achievement. Let's take about 10 more minutes. We're not gonna finish it all, but I want to bring your attention to some more scientific support to what we're saying. Malcolm Gladwell, in his book David and Goliath, Underdogs, Misfits, and the Art of Battling Giants, right? So this is a summary of one of his chapters. A study of inventors, creative types, and entrepreneurs led to the study of difficult childhoods and parental loss. The methodology that they took was make a list of every famous people from early Greek civilization up to the present day. This is a research methodology. To the present day, whose life merited more than one column in the encyclopedia. So you look in the encyclopedia, okay, we want to begin to look at our basic fund of resource information is going to be whoever earned more than one column of mention in the encyclopedia. What came as a result was a list of 699 people Then what they did was find the reliable biographers wherever possible. That is, okay, we got 699 people. Okay, we need the biographies of these 699 people, but we only want them from reliable biographers. Those of you who understand Sahih and the how can you say the Sahih and the Da'if and the Hassan and the Mutawatira and all that about the Hadith, then you understand and appreciate that strategy. So they sought to find the most reliable biographies wherever it was possible. What happened as a result? As a result, after 10 years and the study of 573 reliable biographies, their finding was that 25% of them had lost, meaning of these 573 reliable biographies that came from listing of famous people from Greek civilization up to the present, that is in human history, quote unquote, recorded human history, at least in the West for sure. It's like, okay, we got down to 573 people. Okay, we did the full study of them. What did we find? 25% of them had lost a parent before the age of 10. Trauma, right? Then what else? By the age of 15, 34.5% had at least lost one parent. All right, trauma by the age of 15. By the age of 20, 45% had at least one parent die. So losing a parent is a big part of what makes for inventiveness, creativity, high achievement. All right? That loss. Now remember, our childhood, where was our parent as a people? Where was our parent as a people when we set foot on these shores in the 15th century? All right. Well, 1555, that's 16th century. All right. All right. A similar study of the height of the British Empire, meaning they did the same thing, but just for the British Empire, from the early 19th century to World War II. What were their findings? Their finding was that 67% of all prime ministers had lost a parent. Remember, the loss of a parent is a critical thing, right? 67% of all prime ministers had lost a parent before the age of 16. The same percentages of parental loss applies to American presidents. Okay? So the orphans, right? The Imam pointed out, for us, in Islam, let's put it like this. In Islam, orphan is where there's no father. That child is an orphan, right? For us, usually in the West, usually the orphan is someone doesn't have a mother or a father in their lives. They've lost the mother and the father. So in terms of the orphan literally in the language of the Imam is like the people who don't have leadership. That's the orphan, because the leader is the father, right? And where there is no father, there's no leadership, right? So we have been orphaned. We hit the shores orphan, right? Let's move on. So the scholarly literature has found that many gifted children fail to live up to their promise because they inherited an excessive amount of psychological health. It's correct. This is what I say. I'll read it again slowly. The scholarly literature has found that many they're gifted, but they don't live up to their promise based on how much giftedness they show. Why don't they live up to their promise? Because they inherited an excessive amount of psychological health. What is that? 2 parents in the home, good environment, good surroundings, right? Food on the table, dress warm, protection from the elements, safe environment, blah, blah. Too much of that causes, now don't go stripping away stuff. Too much of that the gift is not as fully realized. It goes on and says, the finding is that those who fall short are too conventional, too obedient, too unimaginative to make the big time with some revolutionary idea. They're not used to having to be creative. They're not used to having to operate and color outside of the lines because they've had good parents and because they've had parenting that socialize them and acculturate them and make them quote unquote more conventional, obedient, good people, good character, etc. But they don't challenge just by the nature of their existence. They don't challenge the boundaries. They have been socialized inside of the boundaries, so they're good people in the culturally instantiated world that they were born in, even though they can have the quote unquote the high IQ and these demonstrable capacities, but they are too conventional, okay, and thereby unimaginative, right? Let's go on. Intuitively, it is true that the absence of parents is generally problematic. It's as a rule, it's problematic and not the norm in the design of Allah for human life. That is, the absence of God means for the tarbiyah. When you talk about education, you talk about parenting. Kama rabayani sagira is part of the dua in the Quran. Oh Allah, have mercy. Qur rabbir harhuma kama rabayani sagira. Oh Allah, have mercy on them, even as the two of them nurtured me when I was little. So God's design is the norm for God is two parents. That's the best way. That's the best way. The world, the world, man, the world has this. Listen, the world grows of 5% innovation, 95% imitation. The world needs innovators to invent the wheel. Let's put it like that. And then after that, we don't need somebody to reinvent the wheel. We got the innovation. Who'd you get it from? You got it from Joe Blow from Kokomo, whatever. I'm sorry. So he invented the wheel. I said, oh, I'm gonna invent a wheel. No, you don't need to invent a wheel. Just do what Joe did. All right. So now imitation is what we need. But we do need innovators, right? But we don't need a whole lot of them. We just need one to do whatever needs to be done. So you get the how many Einsteins are there in the world, and whoever else you want to you put in there whoever you want. The idea is that they innovate, then the rest of the world imitates. Okay, so that means God sets it up in a way where we're not going to get a whole lot of innovators. We're always going to, but everybody learns how to imitate what the innovator does, and that's beneficial for the world. But in order for us to get that innovator, they themselves are going to have to suffer some stuff. Listen now, Elon Musk. You need to, if you haven't looked at his little biography, you need to look at his biography. That guy, he had a tough coming up. His pop was kind of Michael Jackson, Joe Jackson crazy. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. And Michael Jackson, of course, is an example also of the trauma and the genius and the innovation. And James Brown the same way. It just goes on and on and on. So let's move on, Fahim. So intuitively, it is true that the absence of parents is generally problematic and not the norm in the design of Allah for human life. And I just tried to explain, well, it's not the norm, but it does happen. And I just tried to explain, and this is the reason why Allah allows it. In the qadr, it is for somebody to be the innovator. But in order for them to be the innovator, they're going to have to suffer a little more trauma than the others who are not innovators experience. And that's literally what you get in that. So let me go ahead and jump on that point right now. That is for humanity. What has happened to the Bilalians? What happened to the captured slave from Africa? That captured slave, it was the one who was chosen for the trauma, that when they come to their fullness, it will be a benefit for the whole world. Hold on to that, because that's what happened. Allah allowed it to happen to us for the benefit of the whole world. Yeah. All that. Yeah. You mean, yeah. I mean that. You mean, yeah. 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 That's who we are. Yeah. Have the courage to follow the logic to its conclusion. the great image that you might and you should have in your mind when I was going through all this, is that image that's always been shown to us as the savior of the world. It's been given in such a way to, and the world of the human age, but I'm not going to try to explain it all right now. The point is that that though that is the way that Allah does it. Allah means for the world to have something. I don't need all y'all to do this, but there are some that I'm going to take to use them for the purpose of bringing into the world what the world needs. But now they're going to have to pay a price in order to get into that position. And it's not their choice, it's my choice that they have this experience, but it's for the benefit of the world. And even though they suffer the trauma that has to be put upon them in order for them to be shaped and formed and fashioned into the vessel that I need them to be, they'll thank me later. For loss of a better term. Okay, they'll thank me later. And we're thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as we speak. All right. So intuitively, it's true that the absence of parents is generally problematic and not the norm in the design of Allah for human life. That the early death of a parent is problematic is supported by the fact that among the prison population, there are 2 or 3 times more likely to have lost a parent in childhood. So it's like everybody doesn't become a genius. Everybody's not innovative in consequence of the trauma that they experience. Some of them just go left. Some of them just go left. And I got a feeling a lot of people haven't checked in with Ta-Nehisi Coates. I mean, he says, well, the other book that he said he's an atheist. Okay, but we understand what you're atheist against. We understand that some of us do. But at the same time, his book, The Message, and the interviews that have followed his being around, this is also one of the points that he makes. Everybody that experiences trauma don't come out on the positive side of that equation. Sometimes they come out on many times, most times they come out, or many times, to put it like this, come out on the bad side of the equation. But that doesn't change God's will. Now, this is my saying because he has his own quote unquote orientation as relates to God's will and the rest. Okay, so again, if you understand the qadr of Allah, Allah allows whatever Allah allows, it's always bringing about the best for the most, right? And again, go back to, okay, only a small number of people come out on the innovative, creative side of that trauma, but that's all that's necessary because society moves on 5% innovation and 95% imitation, and consequently, the success of the innovator in bringing to the world what the world otherwise wouldn't have without their innovation, then that's the benefit to the 95%. And that benefit to the 95% is coming out of the trauma of the 5%. Okay, so same way with us as a people. Yeah, so many millions of us have experienced this. And how many people are there in the world? There are billions of people in the world. Okay, so the innovation that comes from that in relative terms, small number, is going to benefit billions of people, literally billions of people. But whereas the benefit is born of the trauma that small percentage of people in relative terms historically, that benefit comes to the bigger number from the trauma of the smaller number. And by Allah's will, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants to those he takes for that kind of service, and he blesses them in a way beyond their calculation. That's the truth. I know you got to slow that down and work it out, but that's it. So, difficult childhood losses. Examples: Nelson Mandela's father died when he was 9. Steve Jobs, orphaned as a baby and was then adopted. Bill Clinton, father died in a car accident before he was born. Malcolm X, his father was murdered by white racists when he was 6 years old, and his mother was institutionalized. Ella Fitzgerald, both parents died when she was a child. Ray Charles, Babe Ruth, Jamie Foxx, George Washington Carver, Aristotle, and the list goes on and on. I found this very interesting. I'm sorry, I won't click to it, but Jimmy Butler, Miami Heat star, he's got a traumatic story, and it's really, but again, his excellence comes through, but it also comes out of his trauma as well. So look Jimmy Butler up. So if you take a screenshot and type that in, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about, inshallah. Let's see if we can close this out. Let's see. Yes, also, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he fits that very thing. Prophet Muhammad was born 570 CE, Christian era, common era, in Mecca, in the Arabian Peninsula, into the noble but impoverished Hashim clan of the powerful Quraysh tribe. His father Abdullah passed away before he was born. His mother Amina died when he was only 6 years old. After her death, he was cared for by his grandfather Abdul Muttalib, and then by his uncle Abu Talib, who became his guardian and protector. During his early childhood, he was sent to live with a Bedouin family in the desert, and which was customary for children of his background. This experience shaped his physical endurance and appreciation for nature and the Arabic language. And there's a lot to that. Inshallah, we'll get to it, because I'm telling you, in the same history of creating Arabic for or as a vessel for the final revelation, same thing happened to the Bilalian in shaping them up in that isolation to be the vessel for the message to humanity, the call of Bilal, the message to humanity that people were suited for and historically fashioned for, to call the world back to humanity. That's really what's going on. And the world needs this. Don't you think the world needs this? If everybody would learn how to see everybody as human, just that. Okay, just stop. Just stop. Don't see black, don't see white, blue, red, yellow, whatever. Just see, okay, he's a human being. Okay, and accord them all of the rights and acknowledges that privileges that go along with being a human. Everybody, allow that for everybody. The world would be a better place, absolutely. But somebody's got to call back to that humanity. Who's better qualified to call back to that humanity than someone who was dehumanized by the world, but then came back to their humanity, transcendent to the world's attempt to keep them dehumanized? That's, you want to talk about an innovation, that's an innovation right there. And who is the one that called us to that? The world to that, more than Imam, one of the Muhammad, rahimahullah. So it is what it is. Muhammad grew up under challenging circumstances, experiencing poverty and hardship, which fostered in him a strong sense of empathy, resilience, and moral integrity. He became known for his honesty and kindness, earning him the nickname Al-Amin, the trustworthy. All right? So Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam fits everything that we're talking about in there. And Imam Warathuddin Muhammad. This is just a piece from that is abstracted some from a piece, W.D. Muhammad, The Making of a Black Muslim Leader, by Zafar Ishaq Ansari. So again, take a screenshot. You can, inshallah, find this piece online. In these perilous circumstances, quoting from the article, in these perilous circumstances, prudence dictated that Elijah Muhammad should leave his family in Chicago and keep moving from place to place, more or less in the state of hiding. This period lasted for about 8 years, from 34 to 42. Now, mind you, Imam Muhammad was born in, what, was 31? Pretty sure 31. So Elijah Muhammad is moving now 34 to 72, 1942. In 1942, Elijah Muhammad was sent to prison for his alleged sympathy with the Axis power. You know, Tojo, Hitler, Mussolini. Sympathy with the Axis power. A lie, but that's what they said. For his alleged sympathy with the Axis powers, and remained imprisoned till 1946. Okay, so now here, the first 13 years of Wallace's life was spent without any contact with his father. Okay, so by means of the nature of circumstances as it was the same kind of absence of parenting. That's why Imam Muhammad ascribes most of his development and nurturance to his mother, Clara Muhammad, because the absence of his father. So he really didn't have contact with his father until his teenage years. And that's very important. Excuse me. So let's see where we are. Good. So okay. Next week, good. We're going on to that. Yeah, the man was born in 33. All right. Take that. I always think about him in relationship to my mother. She was born in 34, Rahimahullah. And I had this idea of younger, who's young, who. Okay, 33. Thank you. Alhamdulillah. lot to say. Alhamdulillah. All right, so that's going to be it for me right now. I know we almost 25 minutes over our scheduled time, but I want to close the door on this idea so we can move to the next thing next week, inshallah. Let me say this before I end, as I open for any brief comments. Please respect the timing situation that you want to make. Tomorrow, again, all I can tell you is if you have any concerns about what does the Trump presidency mean, then you need to check in with us tomorrow. Zoom, 8 a.m. Until we finish. It will be hours, so just have that in mind. But of course, as adults and as such as it is, you have go and come as is your schedule permits. But very, very crucial pieces that we want to lay out there, and I want us to see the divine hand and the diabolical hand. You want to see the divine and the diabolical quality of it, and have an understanding of it that keeps you illuminated, guided, motivated, etc. That's the point. Zaki, I'm gonna come to you. Tyson, any comments, statements you want to make before I invite others in?
Alhamdulillah, thank you again for another great session. No additional comments aside from just the appreciation and thanks for making sure that we have this information as a community.
Alhamdulillah, good. Thank you so much for keeping us enlightened. Zakia, you were on and now you're off. Okay, go ahead. Then Abdul Shakur, I'll come to you after.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah, Allah is so merciful. We know that. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. I'm saying that because I was looking for you all morning. And so finally I found you. Now I found you right after I posted the Ta-Nehisi Coates thing, and then you came in and started talking about that. Okay.
Allahu Akbar. That's how
Allahu Akbar. And then the other thing was when I don't know how much I missed. I hope I'm not being redundant, but if we look at these examples that you just drew of people who the prophet being first, Imam Muhammad amongst them, and I'm asking the question, but I'm kind of making a comment too, because I kind of consider myself to be in that mercy stream of Allah. Most
definitely. Yeah.
I hear you. Okay. All right. Yeah. So now the question part is that part that I mean, like, that's kind of like a law, a principle, the way that this is manifest.
Yeah. And you are an example of that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, for real, I'm telling you.
For real.
We're not gonna get into your business in that sense, but your friend and I who live together, we all said, there go God again. There go God again. It's like, no, it's a law. it's a law. We're gonna have to move on, but go ahead.
Okay, it's just last night or this morning when I was waking, I was thanking Allah because I was going over the years,
Yes.
my years. Like some of you guys can go over your years and you can say, well, I went to work from 1970 to 1989 or 90 or whatever, 2000. I
Mhm.
can't say that. So I had to
Yeah.
look back and say, well, wait a minute. Yeah.
Praise be to Allah.
Praise be to Allah. That's it.
Allah loves you. Allah loves you.
Alhamdulillah.
Oh, Akbar. Abdul Shakur. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, once again, thank you, both you and Brother Tyson, for another excellent session. Yeah, just real briefly, I want to make a reference to the sports analogy that was used regarding African American athletes and the inventiveness, right? The Saquon Barkley move being an example of that, and others as well.
Yeah.
I thought about a Caucasian player by the name of Jason Williams, who, because of his
Oh
style
yeah,
of play,
J-Dub, white
was
chocolate.
called right. See, so even though he was Caucasian, they had to give a lean to his style of play by referencing him as chocolate, right? So I thought that was very much
Oh,
on
that's the
point.
truth. It's the
And
truth.
the point that you made regarding that. So thank you.
No, thank you, thank you. I hate to step on your line, but yeah, you remind him was right there. Yeah, and that boy is balling too. But you gotta give credit where credit is due. Where's your motivation? I mean, Eminem. His stuff he got some crazy lyrical kind of stuff. But the point is that all the big boys in the business, they take their hat off to Eminem, right? It's like Eminem guy. You don't want to come up against Eminem. So yeah, that happens, but that's because they've grown up under the influence of the environment we created. That's it. All right. Imam Asma, I know you got something to say, my brother. Before I shut the door, come on through.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Yeah. I just wanted to reiterate this concept of sublimation
Yes.
in all of the examples that you use. And I know early on, Imam had in his language, like from dust to industry,
Yes.
or you go from nothing
Yes.
to something. That's our whole, even from like you talked about the sperm,
Yeah.
and coming into to a brain that's working and a conscious that has its spiritual characteristics
Yes.
inside. So, and that is sublimation. Plus all the examples that you gave, and it varies. It's when Imam made that statement. It's a part of his. I would say it's a part of his method.
Oh, absolutely.
The
No,
sublimation piece. So it's something we really need to, ponder over.
absolutely.
And tomorrow's session, will the revolution be televised?
Yeah, we're gonna be on Zoom. We're gonna be on Zoom.
It's gonna be. You gonna post it, or you gonna?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh yeah,
oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's it's for the public. It's definitely for the public. And
Okay.
just like right now, there's on the side that doesn't have the slides portion of it. I do Facebook Live, but they also simultaneously do the Zoom. But I have some audio that I'm going to play from the Imam. Definitely, I know two from the Imam, and I'm one maybe from an. Yeah, I think there's a Jordan Peterson piece that I'm going to play a portion of. So it would be very good. So I mean, if there's a way for a person to do both the Zoom and the Facebook Live, that I recommend that. But it's just like we are right now. That's how it's going to be tomorrow. So that's it. So just the idea is like there's a very strong possibility that we'll probably be going from 8 to Zohr. I'm trying to break it up so that we can have some input in between, but I have to put some limits on that because sometimes the conversation gets diverted because of relevant things, but I don't want to go with the diversion. I need to stay on track with that. So I try not to make it a burden, but I have to lay the bricks down for the road that I think we need to travel. And it's such a big thing, and something that we haven't said for so long. We're going to get into the Greek, the Egyptian mystery systems, the Satan, the Quran part of it, the Qadr, and so many of those things that the divine hand, being able to really see the divine hand and the diabolic hand in it, is just so critical. It just takes some time to lay that out. You can't just jump out and microwave it. It just takes time. So it's going to be hours. Everybody got to have that. So it's 8 a.m. Pacific time, Imam.
So
Okay.
is it on this site, Imam?
Yeah, no.
Oh.
Go to masjidalwaratheen.org to get
Uh,
the actual meeting note and the hot link.
Okay,
The hot link that will tap you into it. You
okay,
go to masjidalwaratheen.org and then you just click on the link and it'll bring you to it.
okay, thank you.
And if it doesn't, make sure you reach me and let me know.
Okay, all right.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much. Thank you all. May Allah continue to guide us, bless us, protect us. Inshallah.
Ameen.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Wow.